In the busy city of Port Harcourt, where traffic never sleeps and markets never stay quiet, there was a small street hidden between two tall buildings. Most people passed it every day without noticing anything unusual, but the people who lived there knew something others did not. They called it Shadow Street.
They're coming! Run!
Mama Sade, I stand before you.
In the busy city of Port Harcourt, life moved like a restless river. From the early morning hours when the first buses began honking on Abba Road, to the late nights when streetlights flickered over empty sidewalks, the city never truly slept. Okadas buzzed like impatient insects, traders shouted prices in crowded markets, and the smell of roasted plantain drifted through the evening air. People were always moving, always rushing somewhere. But hidden between two tall office buildings in the older part of the city was a narrow street most people never noticed. It did not appear on most maps. Taxi drivers rarely entered it. Even the noise of the city seemed to fade as soon as someone stepped inside. The people who lived there called it Shadow Street. No one remembered exactly when that name began, but the older residents said the street had always been different. Not dangerous, just different. Shadow Street was small, with old houses painted in fading colors. A cracked concrete road ran through the center, lined with mango trees whose branches stretched over the rooftops like quiet guardians. Children played football in the evenings using slippers as goalposts. Women sat outside their homes gossiping while peeling cassava. Men gathered near a small roadside shop to argue about politics and football. It was not a rich place, but it was a peaceful place. And in the center of the street, beneath the largest mango tree, sat a small wooden corn stand. It belonged to an old woman everyone called Mama Sade. No one knew her real age. Some said she was 70. Others said she was much older. Her skin carried deep wrinkles like old maps, and her silver hair was always tied neatly beneath a patterned scarf. Every afternoon, she roasted corn over a small charcoal fire while the smell drifted warmly through the street. Children loved her. If a child had no money, Mama Savess still gave them corn. If someone looked sad, she noticed immediately. And sometimes, when no one else was paying attention, she said strange things. Things that sounded like riddles. Things that made people wonder if Mama Sade knew secrets the rest of the world had forgotten. Across the city lived a man named Chief Bako. Everyone knew his name. Chief Bako was one of the richest property developers in Port Harcourt. He owned shopping centers, apartment blocks, office towers. People said that if you looked across the skyline, at least 5 buildings probably belonged to him. But wealth had not made him kind. It had made him hard. Chief Bako believed one thing above all. Money was power. And power meant never listening to anyone weaker than you. Tenants feared him. Workers avoided him. Even business partners spoke carefully around him. Because Chief Bako had no patience for people's struggles. If someone could not pay rent, he evicted them. If a worker asked for help, he replaced them. To him, life was simple. If you were poor, it meant you were weak, and weak people did not deserve space in a city full of opportunity. One hot afternoon, Chief Bako sat in the back seat of his black SUV while his driver navigated traffic. He studied a tablet filled with maps of the city, construction plans, land records, new opportunities. Suddenly, his eyes stopped on a small, empty-looking area between two business districts. "What is this place?" he asked. The driver glanced at the screen. That area is old housing, sir. Not very valuable." Chief Bako leaned closer, but he saw something different. The land sat perfectly between two expanding commercial zones, which meant one thing: it would soon become extremely valuable. "What street is that?" he asked. The driver shrugged. "Shadow Street, I think." Chief Bako smiled slowly. Land like that should not be wasted on small houses and poor families. It should be turned into something bigger, something profitable, something that would make him even richer. And in that moment, Chief Bako decided something. Shadow Street would soon belong to him. 3 days later, several expensive cars entered Shadow Street. Residents stopped their activities and stared. Men in suits stepped out carrying folders. Behind them came security guards, and then Chief Bako himself. The street grew quiet. Mama Sade watched from beneath her mango tree. Chief Bako cleared his throat. "I am the new owner of this land," he announced loudly. The words felt like a sudden storm. People exchanged confused glances. "You have 30 days to leave," he continued. Gasps spread through the crowd. Some people protested, others begged. A woman with 2 children stepped forward. "Sir, where will we go?" Chief Bako barely looked at her. "That is not my problem." His assistants began handing out official eviction notices. Panic spread across the street. Only Mama Sade remained calm. She slowly stood up and walked toward Chief Bako. Her walking stick tapped softly against the ground. "Chief Bako," she said quietly. He glanced at her with mild annoyance. "Yes? This street does not belong to people like you." He laughed. "Old woman, everything has a price." Mama Sade's eyes held a strange calm. "Not everything." Chief Bako turned away dismissively. 30 days, he repeated. Then he left. But as his car disappeared from the street, Mama Sade whispered something under her breath. "The ground will answer him." 1 week later, demolition crews arrived. Bulldozers rolled in. Workers began preparing equipment. Chief Bako watched confidently. This would be quick. But the moment the first bulldozer tried to start its engine, it died. The operator tried again. Nothing. Another machine started, then suddenly shut off. Within minutes, every piece of equipment stopped working. Mechanics inspected the machines. They found nothing wrong. Yet none of them would start again. Workers exchanged uneasy looks. "This place feels strange," one muttered. Chief Bako grew furious. "Bring new machines tomorrow." The next evening, construction resumed. But as the sun began to set, something unusual happened. The shadow stretching across the street began to move, not with the sun, but against it. Workers froze. The shadows twisted slowly across the road like living smoke. Then something impossible happened. They began to rise, like people standing up from the ground. A tall shadow shaped like a fisherman, another shaped like a mother carrying a baby, another like a boy holding books. The workers screamed. Some dropped their tools and ran. Within seconds, the entire crew fled Shadow Street. No one stayed long enough to understand what they had seen. That night, Chief Bako returned alone. He refused to believe in superstition. The street was silent. Streetlights flickered softly. Mama Sade sat beneath her mango tree, roasting corn as usual. "You again," he said. She nodded. "You were warned." Chief Bako scoffed. "I don't believe in childish stories." Mama Sade looked toward the ground. Long ago, before this city grew tall, travelers rested on this land. She spoke softly. They shared food with strangers. They protected the weak. They helped each other survive. Their kindness soaked into this soil. She tapped the ground gently with her stick. And the ground remembers. Chief Bako rolled his eyes. He turned to leave, but suddenly he noticed something strange. His shadow did not move with him. It remained behind, slowly rising from the ground. It stood upright, and it looked exactly like him, but darker, colder, crueler. The shadow spoke in a deep whisper. "You fed me." Chief Bako stepped back in terror. "What are you?" "I am the shape of your heart." The shadow grew larger. You chased the poor. You laughed at suffering. You built your wealth from other people's tears. The shadows stretched across the street like darkness spilling from a broken cup. And now I have grown too big to hide. Chief Bako ran, but the shadow followed him through the city. Every streetlight flickered as it chased him, and everywhere he went, people saw it. The darkness he had created. By morning, Chief Bako returned to Shadow Street, but he was no longer the same man. His expensive suit was gone. His face looked pale, tired, quiet. He walked slowly toward Mama Sade. "I understand now," he said. She nodded. "The earth showed you your reflection." He looked around the street. "I cannot undo my past, but I can choose what I do next." Within weeks, something remarkable happened. Chief Bako canceled the demolition. Instead, he repaired every home on the street. He built a small school, a health clinic, a community center. People watched in disbelief as the cruel businessman slowly became a different man. Not perfect, but trying to be better. One morning, Mama Sadi's stand was gone. Her stool, her fire pit, everything. Only the mango tree remained, and carved into its bark were small words. "The earth remembers the heart." No one ever saw Mama Sade again. But sometimes when the sun sets and shadows stretch across the road, people say they move gently, as if watching, as if protecting the street that kindness built. And so the people of the city began telling this story to their children. Because the lesson of Shadow Street is simple. A person can hide evil from the world. They can hide it behind money, behind power, behind success. But the world itself remembers every cruel act, every selfish choice, every greedy heart. Because darkness grows when people feed it, and one day it will stand up and face them. But kindness does something different. Kindness sinks deep into the earth. It grows quietly, and long after we are gone, it still protects the world. That is why people say, a greedy heart builds shadows, but a good heart leaves light behind.